All right, so you all are here for the Thriving with Your Team in Slack session. So it's nice to see all of you. My name is Rachel Lee. I'm on the accounts team here at Slack. I've been here for about 9 or so months. Prior to being here, I was at Box for a few years. I am really excited about companies that are building products that transform the way that we work. That's really exciting for me. The other reason I'm excited for this session in particular is because I personally am just a sucker for productivity tips. I love it. Hacks, tips, all of it. It's my jam. So I hope that's why all of you are here as well. So before we get started, I'd love to just understand a little bit about who we have here in the room. How many of you all have been using Slack for just under a month? Raise of hands. Okay, we got a few folks. What about 3 to 6 months? A few more hands. What about 9 months and beyond? All right, we've got a lot of hands here. So certainly have a mix of folks in the room. Final question before we jump in. How many of you all are admins or owners or primary owners of your team? Okay, it's the majority of folks. And I guess it's safe to say the rest of you all are end users. I am on our Slack team as well. So what you can expect today is really just a bunch of tips and tricks to help you get more out of Slack. So a lot of you may already be experts. You may know a lot of this. We're going to do a bit of periodic polling and checking to kind of feel the room and see how this is going. We would love your feedback on how we can make this better in the future. All right? So you've been hearing this all throughout the day. April shared it, and Ali referred to it as well. But this is because it's really, really important to us. At Slack, it ties into every single thing that we do, and also ties into our conversation today. Our mission is to make people's working lives simpler, more pleasant, and more productive. So if we can help you do that as you communicate with your team, as you get your job done, we really want to make that impact. And it also ties into the way that this conversation will continue today. The first part of our conversation is about how you can work in Slack, how you can get more out of Slack as you're using it for yourself. That's the productivity aspect. Secondly, Slack is no fun if you use it by yourself. I hope none of you are using Slack by yourself. That's not going to be very fun. And so how you can actually use it with your team and get the most out of it. And then thirdly, and related to our panel that we just had, how you can foster your team culture in Slack, how you can bring the best aspects of your culture and grow that within Slack, and how Slack can actually help you do that. So the first part is working in Slack. And really, we'll jump in and get your thoughts and feedback. Hopefully, some of these tips and tricks will be new stuff that you didn't actually know coming in here. So we've heard a lot about this. Slack really helps increase the transparency. You can see the conversations that are not only happening within your team and your sphere within your organization, but you can see that across the entire business. And that's really cool. But there's a lot of information that's available now at your fingertips. So how can you not be distracted? How can you really focus on what you care about and what's important to you? We have a few tips to help with that. The first one is starring conversations. Every single channel, private channel, direct message, can be starred, which means that it's pinned to the top left-hand corner of your Slack interface. It's going to stay there, and it's really easy to jump back and forth to those conversations. You're going to want to star conversations that you participate in literally every day. So maybe DMs with your boss, DMs with your colleagues, your project channels, your team channels. Those are great ones to star right there in the top left. The second one is highlight words. And this is really, really powerful. It's a way for you to customize for every single end user your proactive notifications. So what you care about, and Slack will proactively notify you anytime one of those highlight words are triggered, right? So this could be your project that you're working on, your own name. So for me, Rachel is one of my highlight words. So even if someone forgets to @mention me, anytime they say Rachel, I'm going to be notified. Right? I mentioned I work with clients all day, so anytime one of my customer names are mentioned, let's say someone writes in with an urgent customer support ticket, even if no one stops to think about, hey, Rachel will probably want to know about this, anytime they mention that client name, I'm going to be notified in our Zendesk channel, for example. Some fun use cases for this is people will put in the phrase sign up. So anytime there's a new sign up for a new perk, like a massage or yoga classes, you'll be the first to know. If anyone says food trucks, we're going to go for food trucks, you're right there to sign up and head out the door with them. How many of you all are already using highlight words? Show of hands. Okay. Hopefully it was new for the rest of you. Before I move on, actually, one of the best practices that I learned from a customer is they were an evangelist that brought Slack into their team. And they were responsible for answering the questions that a lot of the folks on their team had. So they actually put Slack as one of their highlight words because they realized that whenever someone's mentioning Slack, it's because they have a question. And they're saying, hey, do you know how to do this in Slack? Or I tried this in Slack and it didn't work. And so that highlight word actually triggered their notification. They jumped in and were ready to help. Next, Atmention Panels. This sits at the top right-hand corner of Slack, and it basically collects all of the action items. So anytime you were @mentioned, it's going to save that in your @mention panel for you. This is the first thing that I check when I've been away from Slack. Maybe I was in a meeting or 2 meetings, and I've been away from Slack. I haven't checked it. Probably what I'm going to do right after this is go and check my @mention panel so I can see who asked me to look at something or review something. That's a great place to prioritize when you come back to Slack for the first time after being away. Yeah.
Do you also get notifications for channels that you're not part of?
The question was, do you also get notification on highlight words that you are not part of? The answer is no. So you want to be a member of those channels. And in just a bit, we're going to talk about how you can be a part of a lot of channels, but kind of turn down the volume on that. Great question. What we're looking at here is the ability to customize notifications on a per channel basis. This is incredible. We don't get to do this with email, right? You get an email that says, you got a new follower on Twitter, or someone endorsed you on LinkedIn. It's really great, but I don't need that to light my phone up, right? Just as when I get an urgent email that says, hey, I need you to do this, and it's from my boss, that email comes to me and notifies me in the same exact manner. In Slack, you can actually customize those notifications on the channels that you care about most. So if you are in an active project and you're up against a deadline, you can dial up those notifications. Hit me with a desktop notification. If I don't respond to that, send me a mobile push notification. If I don't respond to that, then and only then send me an email so I don't lose track of anything. But if this is a fun channel like the maybe food and drink channel where people share new restaurant recommendations, I don't need to know about that all the time. So I'm going to crank down the notifications on that one. How many of you folks are already doing this and customizing your notification preferences? All right, that's a good handful of folks. So this is kind of going back to the question mentioned earlier. That's great. Now I know how to focus my attention on what I care about, but there's a lot of other channels that I care about, but I don't need to be notified proactively all the time. So we have some tips on that end as well. Conversations in Slack, just like in real life, are fluid. They happen, they end, they move on, we go on to the next thing, and it's a really fluid conversation, right? And so in Slack, we make it really easy for you to join the channels that are important to you, but also leave, right? So a good example is within our Slack team, we have tons of help channels. Help IT, help benefits, help finance, etc. You go in there, you have a question, you ask your benefits related question, you get a great answer, and then you can leave that channel and you no longer have to have that sitting on your left-hand side. But the next time you have a benefits question, it's very easy for you to jump back in there and ask a question. I will admit, the first time I created a channel and I saw someone leave, because you can see all of that. Every time someone joins and leaves a channel, you can see it, it's all tracked. It was a little bit sad. I was like, does my channel not matter to you? But it actually saves all of us a lot of productivity if we're just in the ones that matter to us the most. But sometimes you don't want to take it quite as far as to leave the channel completely. You still care about it, but you just don't want it to turn bold every single time someone's posting a new question or has something new to share in that channel. So if you don't want to go so far as to leave the channel or you don't want to hurt someone's feelings, you can mute the channel. And that's just by doing /mute. And so this is what I do for channels where I want to get those proactive notifications based on my highlight words, but I don't want it to turn bold for me. I only want to check it when I'm being triggered, right? So our Zendesk channel is a great example. all of the tickets that come in from our customers pipe into our Zendesk channel. It's one of the apps that we have installed on our team. And so it's great because anytime one of my customers, again, going back to that example, writes in, I'm going to get that notification. But I don't need to have it turn bold every single time. So that's one that I have muted. We have a sales events channel. So every time someone purchases Slack, that gets recorded. But I don't need to know about that all the time. I can check that on my own time over the weekend, after work, et cetera. So that's a muted channel. Archiving channels. This is really, really great when, for example, you are working on a project and it's a really active conversation. For example, when we were planning for this event today, we had a channel where all of us across the company were working together, planning, et cetera. But once the event ends, we do a postmortem, we gather feedback, we have stats. We're going to go ahead and archive that channel because it's not an active conversation that we want to have people continue to be a part of. Archiving the channel means that all of the contents in that channel will be archived, searchable, referenced later for the next event that we put on, but it's not going to be an open conversation that new people on your team can join. The important distinction is if the channel is no longer relevant for just you, you want to leave the channel, like we talked about earlier. If it impacts everyone who's participating in that channel, you're going to want to archive. We had someone on our team who on their first day at Slack was in one of our fun channels. And I'm not going to look at him because I don't want to call him out. He's in the room. But he was in a fun channel. He was like, oh, this is great, but I want to focus on my work. So I'm going to archive the channel. And everyone got a notification, and it was not a fun way to start at Slack. So now he knows, and you all now know, so that you don't have to make that same mistake. So this next one was actually referenced earlier downstairs, and some of you may already know about this, but for the rest of us, Do Not Disturb is a really, really great feature when you want to be heads down and focused. Sometimes we just need an hour or two to step away from Slack, really work on a project or a deliverable that we're working on. Do Not Disturb, as mentioned, is one step to kind of get you in that direction. So what you can do is actually click on that bell icon next to your team name and choose from one of our pre-designated times. And what this does is lets you actually snooze your notifications, but more importantly, it notifies everyone on the team with an indicator that you are currently in Do Not Disturb mode. You're being really focused. So when they send you a message, they're going to get a Slack bot message that says, hey, Rachel is currently in Do Not Disturb mode. She's going to get this when she's back online. If something is urgent and they want to push through that, they can also push through your Do Not Disturb as well. So you have that flexibility. But this is really helpful to kind of be heads down and focus when you need to. I'm curious, how many folks are already using Do Not Disturb or already knew about this before just now? OK. All right. So I got a good one for all of our Inbox Zero fans in the room. Raise your hand if you're an Inbox Zero fan. I am. Yeah. So this feature is often unknown because it's kind of tucked away. If you go to your preferences and advanced options under channel list, we have a way for you to hide all channels with no unread activity unless they are starred. So just to kind of go back here, if you keep your eye to that right-hand sidebar, you'll see that clean up really nicely. It basically gets rid of anything that has unread activity and just gives you a lot of peace of mind. For Inbox Zero fans, this is huge. And it's kind of a game for me to be like, how can I read through all of my channels really quickly? As I said, conversations are fluid. Messages come in, but you can't always take action on them right away. Maybe you're on your way to the office, or you're in a meeting or on a call. So we have a few tips on how you can come back to that message later on in time. The first one is starring. So I know we talked about stars earlier, not to be confused with that. Any message in Slack itself can actually be starred. So this is a great way for you to pick out messages that are good reference items, things you want to jump back to later. So for example, Carl made this, asked for this update on the homepage makeover. I'm going to star that, and then it's going to keep that on my starred items, which sits right next to your Atmention panel. So this is a really nice way for you to kind of curate your list. Maybe think of it as bookmarks on your browser. The really cool thing that I actually didn't know until very recently is that you can search just within your starred items. So if you know, like, hey, I know that the new comp plan was something that I starred, I want to jump back to that really quickly. In your search bar, and we'll go to that in a bit, you can actually say has star, and it'll just search among your starred items, which is really neat. This one is one of my favorite features in Slack, which is the remind feature, and you can actually make Slackbot work for you. So how do you do this? All you need to do is do a /remind, and that's going to let Slackbot know that you want to set a reminder. And it's just really kind of plain syntax language. Remind me to share the updated results in 30 minutes. Slackbot's going to send you a confirmation message, and then in 30 minutes, he's going to ping you. Slackbot is actually not gender specific, so Slackbot will ping you in 30 minutes to say, hey, share the updated results. You can even do /remind list and get a list of all the reminders that you set. So remind me to drink water at 3 p.m. every day. Cool thing is you can also set reminders for other people on your team. So if you're in a meeting and you want to say, hey, Jessica, this action item is for you. I'm just going to send that to you in Slackbot. Do /remind @Jessica and the reminder. The cool thing is when she completes that task or that action, that confirmation comes to you as well, which is really cool. How many of you knew that already and are using that? Okay, we got a good one. All right, so this is my other favorite feature, is the ability to mark messages as unread in Slack. I'm still waiting for Apple to add this to iMessage. This is basically a way for you to mark any message in Slack as unread so that you actually have that red badge notification that says, hey, you need to come back to this message. So stars, again, are good for bookmarking, but this is more for actually reminding you with an actual trigger to say, come back to this at a later point in time. Any message can be marked as unread. Basically, you just hover to the right there on the ellipses, and then you'll see mark unread as an option. So it's kind of more of that active reminder to jump back to a message when you're ready to take action. Now, when you are ready to come back to a message, the easiest way to do this is using our quick switcher. This is by far my favorite shortcut in Slack, and that's Command-K or Windows-K if you're on a Windows machine. Once you click Command-K, you get this pop-up, which is our quick switcher, and it's actually algorithmically made smart so that it surfaces to the very top the conversations that you are in the most. So for example, I talk in the marketing team channel the most. So you'll see, even though it's not alphabetically ordered correctly, it's going to push that to the top because that's the one that I communicate in most often. What you'll also notice about this pop-up is the channel naming convention that we have going on here. This is our recommendation for any channel that you're naming. Put all of the related ones together with the first prefix, same prefix. So marketing-team, marketing-events-eng, etc. The reason for this, it really helps with channel discovery. So if I'm not on the marketing team and I have a question about this event, I might initially say, oh yeah, that should go in the marketing channel where 100 people communicate. Well, once I start typing in marketing, I'll see the marketing-events channel and say, actually, this is probably better for the 50 people that are in this channel because they actually care about marketing events more specifically, and I'll get a quicker answer that way. How many of you folks are already kind of coming up with this naming convention? Cool. So the final thing before we move into how to actually use Slack with your team is search. And search is really, really important because the more you communicate in Slack, the more Slack becomes that archive for your team, that brain, right? So the more information you have in there, and the more you need to actually be able to search that really quickly. This is also really helpful when new members join your team because they have access to this knowledge base of every conversation that was had before they joined. Whereas in a typical organization where you're not using Slack, you get an empty inbox, and that's your day one, and that's where you begin. So in Slack, modifiers help you immensely because it allows you to filter your search results based on what it is that you do know. So if you don't know how to get to the modifiers, or if you don't memorize this screenshot, which is okay, you just need to put in a plus into your search bar in Slack. It's going to give you the same dropdown, and you can use any one of these filters alone, or you can combine them to make a really, really refined search result. So let's try one together. Here, I'm going to look in my team for the word design. I get nothing but close to 9,000 messages and over 4,500 files. I am not going to sit there and parse through all of these messages and files. So the first thing I'm going to do is remove all of the messages from integrations and bots, because I know for a fact that this was shared by a human, and I want to look for it. The next thing is I know that it was shared in the marketing team. This was a marketing asset, so it was likely shared in there, so I'm going to use the Inchannel modifier. And sure enough, I get down to 55 messages and just 4 files, and the one that I'm looking for from CC is sitting right at the top. So that is the way that you want to use search. I remember the first time that I started using modifiers, it changed my world because it made it much more easier to actually get to the information that I was looking for. And as I mentioned earlier, you can also put in your modifier has : so you want to just search within the starred items that you've curated. So some of you all already have your entire team on Slack. How many of you guys? Okay, a good number of you. The rest of you guys maybe are starting out. And the thing that's similar across all of our teams is that we're always going to have new people joining our team, joining your company, that have to be introduced to Slack. So hopefully some of these tips will help you along those fronts. The first one is if you haven't started using Slack with your entire company, or maybe you are not yet at that point where you want to synchronize your Active Directory, this is something that can potentially help with your launch day and really help you streamline your overall onboarding process. On our paid plans, Standard and Plus, we have what we call Slack user groups. And you can think of user groups very similar to distribution lists. It's a group of people that usually have to have the same access to information. So your engineering user group, your design user group, maybe your Android team, your accounts team, and you're in a larger channel and you want to call them out specifically. You can use user groups to do that. The second benefit of user groups is the ability to actually synchronize those, set default channels for those user groups. So if I'm an engineer on my first day, I don't get added to Slack and just have my general and my random channel. I get access to the 5 engineering-specific channels that I need to have access to on a continuous basis. Going back to Active Directory, you can actually synchronize your AD groups and map those to the Slack user groups that you have, which is really great. I see some heads nodding, which is cool. The benefit of synchronizing with your AD is twofold. For the end user, it's one less username and password that you need to remember. For the admin, it really secures your provisioning and deprovisioning process, so it creates much less headache. And as you're thinking about creating your space and bringing on the rest of your team, we have a few tips on how to actually set up your space so that when new members join your team, it's very clear to them how they're expected to communicate in your team, and also they have some information there that's already prepared to help them. So what am I talking about? Usually we recommend having your general channel. Your general channel, I don't know if everyone knew this already, but it's the one channel that everyone is mandatorily required to be a part of. You can't leave that one. So it's great to transform that into your announcements channel, where you want to post things that are really important for everyone on your team to read. And so in that channel, maybe having a post like this that welcomes them into Slack for the first time, and has a post, like the gentleman mentioned, about key things that you want your team to know about Slack. So this might be those channel naming guidelines, key kind of etiquette in Slack. One thing that I heard from a customer was, we came up with our Slack etiquette guidelines, right? So with any tool, you want to kind of set some ground rules. One of them that I thought was really interesting, it was actually referenced earlier, is not just saying, direct messaging someone and saying, hi, are you there? And waiting for them to come back, because now you've grabbed my attention, but I don't have anything to respond to. So instead of doing that, saying, hi, this is the question that I have, and leave that for them, and send that all to them in one message so that they can see the context of what your ask is and respond to you much more efficiently. Channel naming guidelines also help avoid channel duplication. If 15 people on your marketing team join and they're like, oh, there's no marketing channel, I'm going to create one. Now you have 15 different marketing channels that you have to clean up, and that's not fun. And then for the folks that already have your entire team on Slack, we recommend creating a help Slack channel. And that's really useful because everyone can go there to ask their Slack questions, and then your power users, yourselves, will be there ready to answer their questions. How many of you already have a help Slack channel? Cool. All right. So you've got your team on Slack. They're like, all right, you've convinced me. I'm going to try this thing out. Asking people to change the way that they work is not easy. They've been using the same methods for communicating with their teams for decades, and you're asking them to completely transform that. Change is hard. None of us like it. So we have a few recommendations on how to make that a little bit easier. We've had some people in the audience already share on how they did that. Some things that we saw work really well is to make it a little bit more fun. So what you see here in the middle is our Slack Day poster. Just like you wouldn't see a movie hit theaters without months and months and months of trailers preceding and going up to that, you don't want to just say, hey, starting from today, you all are using Slack. You kind of want to get the word out there, get them excited, help them understand what to expect when they're going to start using Slack. And you can go in and kind of prepare it, and that way there's information that's waiting for them when they jump in. So some actual live customer examples of this. BuzzFeed is one of our customers, and they actually created, for them, it was really important that everyone had the mobile app installed, very much like you shared. That's a really big part of the Slack experience because you can actually start communicating with your team without having to directly be at your desk. And so for them, because that was so important, they decided to, on their Slack day, go around and check everyone's phones. If you had the Slack app installed, they actually made custom Slack cocktails called the channel on the direct message. If you had it on your phone, then you got a drink, which is pretty cool. Marketo is another example. They recently launched Slack, and they created a user checklist. And it was the 10 most important things that you need to do in Slack. And every new user got this. It was upload your profile photo, maybe add a few more bits of information to your custom profile fields, share which office you're a part of, things like that. And once you finish that checklist, you could go into the Help Slack channel and say, hey, I'm done, I did this. And that was usually their first message that they posted in a public channel. And the first 50 people actually got a pair of Slacks. So that was really cool, and it actually got them in the habit of using Slack. Just like Microsoft, on the first versions of Windows, they actually installed Solitaire and FreeCell on there, not because they wanted people to play games and card games at work. It was because they wanted to get people comfortable with using the mouse and moving around on the screen. And so that's why they put that there. And so it's a similar kind of concept where you want to get people interested and kind of in the habit of starting to use Slack. Some other examples are customers who actually got their CEO to do an Ask Me Anything, an AMA, in a Slack channel. And that got people communicating out in the open. They could see, oh, wow, this person asked the question that I actually had the same question. And because they asked that in the public channel, I get to see the answer. And that light bulb moment gets to go off. So let's move on to how to actually, this is really for the folks in the room that are really starting at the beginning, wanting to get your team onto Slack. As we mentioned, change can be difficult, and we're asking people to change the way that they work. You might be sitting in your seat and thinking, this is going to be really hard. We have a lot of people who love email, who love Outlook at my company. I can't imagine how we're actually going to get them all on board. You all have heard some great tips already, but when you're starting off, we recommend that you start small. Don't feel like you have to get every single person on your company on Slack tomorrow. We suggest actually starting with a small pilot, and this is really great because you can actually test this out with a small group of people at your company, see if this is going to work, what works well, what doesn't work well, and then extrapolate that to the rest of your company or your organization. The other nice part is starting small, get the feedback, and being able to share that with the rest of the team. When the rest of your team joins Slack, there's already some content there where they can get the context of, oh, this is how we're going to use Slack. This is how we communicate on this tool. One of the tips that we actually heard and learned from a customer is a concept of using Slack on a specific day of the week. So for them, it was Slack Fridays. And their overall mission and their goal was to move all of their internal communication from email to Slack. But like some of you in the room may be feeling, that felt overwhelming, and it felt like they weren't going to be able to do that on day one. So they chose Fridays, and on Fridays they were like, you guys, instead of email, let's try communicating on Slack. Slowly but surely, everyone started realizing, hey, this is actually a much easier way for us to communicate with each other. We're going to just move over completely. And it was kind of that small network effect, but it doesn't have to all happen on one day overnight. You can also try running short-term projects on Slack. We've seen this work really well, where it's like a 2 to 3 week project, and you say, hey, this is a really cool opportunity for us to actually put Slack to the test. Use the free plan, anyone can create it, and use it for however long you'd like with however many people. And you can actually use Slack to create channels for your project, maybe pin important documents like design specs and notes, and actually share those within the channel. How many of you all are doing stand-up meetings or your status update meetings in Slack? Okay, so we're starting to see this actually on many, many projects and not just developer teams. You might have seen people say, Slack helped me reduce meetings. And the reason is because a lot of those information sharing and gathering meetings that we all have every single week, recurring, can actually be moved to Slack. And you don't have to step away from your desk. You don't have to dial in and spend 5 minutes setting up a conference call. You can actually just do that in Slack. So the way to do that is, one of the ways is actually to use that remind feature that I talked about earlier. So you can say /remind this channel. So this is, let's just say the accounts team channel. Remind accounts team to post their update every day at 10 a.m., every weekday at 10 a.m. And Slackbot will come in here and just ping the channel and say, hey, share the 3 things that you're working on today and any blockers that you may have. This is really great for everyone because what people don't really confess is that when you're doing those in person, you're not really listening to what your team members are sharing, right? Because you're thinking, what did I work on yesterday? What can I share? So this is really nice. Everyone gets to think about it thoughtfully and actually document that. And it's nice to reference later on when you need to. Someone shared this earlier about using the emojis, but we actually use this at Slack a lot. And this is actually really helpful for cross-functional collaboration. So as you can see on here, Todd is actually asking Mari to review a security questionnaire. And he's communicating the urgency of the status with that red emoji. For us, a white emoji is just a question or feedback. It's not urgent. Blue is, I'd like an answer within a few days, but it's not super, super urgent right now. Mari will comment back and communicate that she's looking at it with the eyeball emoji. And that's just one last message that needs to get posted to that entire channel for everyone to check. So the eyeballs communicate, I'm looking at this, and then once the issue is resolved or the security questionnaire is done and reviewed, she'll put a white check mark there. So this is a really great way to kind of make it easier for different parts of your organization to communicate with each other in a really efficient way. And what's nice about this is you don't necessarily have to be in the same office working together face to face. You can still get your jobs done really, really easily. All right, so now let's fast forward. You've got your entire team onboarded to Slack. How can you actually help them see Slack as a place where important information is being communicated? It's not just another tool to check. We recommend posting company-wide announcements, updates from leadership. A really cool example that I actually heard from a customer, they were thinking about how do I make people come back to Slack on day 2? How do I make Slack sticky, a place to return? One idea, like the gentleman shared, is to post cookie updates. Another idea is this company in particular created a leadership channel. And they put a captain, they just designated someone every single week to post a question about leadership, essentially to start a discussion around a topic that they cared about. And it was really cool because they started to see people come there as a place to have discussions and conversations with their colleagues about something that they all cared about. And then once the week was over, the person passed the question on or the baton on to someone else within the company where they could ask the questions and start up the discussion that way. In this example, we're announcing new announcements, promotions, things like that. You'll see people had a lot of fun with the emoji reactions, congratulating them. Imagine all of this, all these congratulations, good job, yeah, happy for you, all of that coming in as an individual email. That would be nuts. And so instead of doing that or posting that into Slack individually, you can actually just use reactions to show your support for your colleagues. All right. I'm going to kind of skip through this a little bit for the sake of time, but generally we recommend communicating as much as possible in the channels openly. This goes back to the theme of transparency that has already been brought up today, but really being able to share your information and your knowledge with the rest of your team. Of Of course, confidential conversations do need to happen. At Slack, we absolutely use Slack for everything. Every single private, sensitive conversation, it happens on Slack. I get 0 emails, absolutely 0. And so hiring discussions, compensation conversations, all of that will happen in private channels. All right, so the bot conversation is happening downstairs, but as a lot of you have mentioned, the integrations are really, really helpful. It's kind of the next level where you see Slack bringing the tools that you're using at work together in one place. So slack.com/apps, this is our app directory. April mentioned it earlier as well. This is where you can go to find integration and apps with a lot of the tools that you're already using. Zendesk, Twitter, GitHub, GrowBot, Envoy, Stripe, etc. We recommend, maybe even during a pilot, going ahead and installing the apps that your team already uses so that when your team joins for the first time, they can actually see all those integrations. So some of my favorite ones, for example, is Zendesk. I already mentioned this, but anytime one of my customer writes in, I know about it. Anyone in your company can see the tweets that are going out about maybe a new feature that your company has released or a new update that you've released. You don't have to be in the marketing team to get that update. If you go to slack.com/apps, you'll also see these categories on the left-hand side. This is a really great way to discover new apps as well. So if you're looking for something related to guest check-in, so when people check in and are trying to meet with you, you can actually get that update through a tool called Envoy, for example. We have nice categories for you to kind of sort and find the apps that you're looking for more easily. There are now over 300 apps, so categories and stuff like this helps a lot. But every single team and company is a little bit different, and your needs may be different. So for that, we actually have bot kits and APIs to help you customize your Slack even further. So what you see here is a Slack bot. It's actually a custom / command. And we actually have this within our own Slack team. You may be familiar with the use case where someone says, hey, I have a buddy at Global Gadgets, and he wants to use Slack. Who should I put him in touch with? Who's working with Global Gadgets at our company? What we did is hook this up on the back end with our CRM tool. So anyone in the company can do /accounts, type in the name of the company, and you'll actually get a Slackbot private message that lets you know who within your organization is working with them. And if you actually want to see this live, at our help desk afterwards, you can go in and actually see this installed on some of our demo teams. The one you see down here is actually an example of something that our business operations team built. This is a daily update that updates every 4 hours. So it's not daily. It updates every 4 hours and reports back on the key performance indicators that we have set for ourselves as goals. And so typically, this would come into a data warehouse where your data team might see it, but the rest of your company wouldn't see that. You might get that in a weekly or monthly company update, but you don't get a daily pulse of how you're progressing. This integration or this bot is really helpful for that. All right, so we're on our last section, fostering your team culture in Slack. So far until now, we've all been talking about kind of productivity tips, how you can actually be more productive, be more efficient in Slack. We talked about how to prepare for your launch day, how to introduce your team to Slack, how to synchronize your user groups or set up user groups, and some use cases on how to get started. And of course, how to install those apps that your team already uses. So for the last portion, which is going to be a bit shorter, we're going to talk about how to actually use Slack to make your working life more pleasant as well. So a lot of you have already started doing this with the coffee bot and examples like that, but Slack is really useful for building relationships within your team. I think more and more the way that the working world is changing is we're not communicating and working with each other in the same office. How many of you regularly work with colleagues in other offices or other locations? Or maybe you're in a remote office. That's a lot of us. And so getting to know your teammates more personally helps you to feel a bit more engaged and actually brings all of you a bit closer together. A story that I heard from a customer was, yeah, I introduced Slack to my team because I'm a remote employee in Utah. I used to be the last one to find out about anything. Now, using Slack, we all find out at the same time together. During the panel, what I thought was really interesting was when, I think it was Jay from Pixar, talked about feedback and recognition and being able to highlight our colleagues when they're doing something great and also being inspired by it. And so we like to give and track kudos in Slack, and we think that Slack hopefully will help you do this a little bit more easily. Because feedback is something we want to do. We want to be able to recognize each other when there's good work being done, but it's not always easy to stop and do that. So here are 2 examples on how you can do this in Slack. The one on the bottom here is a third-party app from our app store called GrowBot. And basically what it does is it tracks the highlight words props and kudos, and anytime that's tracked, it's going to make a record of it. It also tracks how many reactions those messages actually get. So when it's time for performance reviews, you're not thinking, hey, what kind of work did I do 6 months ago? Because that's not very easy to remember all the time. You actually have a nice record of that throughout the entire time you were working with your team in Slack. But if you don't want to use a third-party app, you can also very easily just do this natively in Slack by creating a kudos channel and just calling out your colleagues when they're doing great work or helping you out or anything like that. Someone mentioned an introductions channel. We also have something similar. We call it a yay channel, and we celebrate all fun things. So anniversaries, birthdays, your first day at Slack, we also ask that you write a little blurb about yourself, who you are, where you're coming from, which team you're on, what your interests are, and that kind of is a nice way for them to get to know other people in their team. And lastly, we're using Slack for work, and we're having a lot of conversations that are work-related, but it's also nice to have some fun, non-work-related channels as well. We call these affinity groups. And so someone in their yay intro might say, I'm really into coffee and skiing and hiking. You might very easily see someone say, hey, you should join our hiking channel. Or someone might say, I have a 2-year-old son. He's not getting a lot of sleep lately. They might invite you into the Parentland channel, which is a private channel where parents ask questions, share best practices, tips and tricks, and commiserate about how little sleep they're getting. So we're nearing the end here, and someone mentioned it's hard to go find new restaurants around your office, right? You end up going to the same place again and again. I go to Chipotle and Fresh Roll probably every single week. So we'll wrap up with one last fun example. Foursquare actually has a / command in Slack where you can do /Foursquare, type in your address or your coordinates, and it'll actually give you in the public channel a bunch of recommendations. And then people can vote and choose their favorite restaurant for lunch that day, which is pretty fun. So let's recap, because there was a lot of information that was shared today. In sections 1 and 2, we really talked about how you can work in Slack and how you can bring the rest of your team onto Slack. Really thinking about ways to be more productive, all those tips and tricks and hacks that I told you I love. We gave you tips on staying focused, how to manage the signal to noise ratio, how to customize your notifications based on what you care about. And then we talked about strategies for training your team and introducing them to Slack for the first time, getting the rest of your team on board. And then finally, we talked about ways to grow your team culture in Slack and how Slack could potentially help with that. I hope this was helpful for you. This was great. I really appreciate you guys joining and participating in the conversation. I learned a bunch. I hope this was helpful for you. I think next we have time for networking and just having fun. We also have our help desk, which is just around the corner. So if you have any deeper dive questions about anything we covered, please come and find us there. Thanks.